All right, welcome everyone. If you can hear me, please raise your hand. All right, excellent. I see a few hands going up. Perfect. All right, and I'm assuming everybody can see my screen here as well. All right, so welcome to the virtual Kanban webinar. My name is Lori McNeely, and joining me is Butch Doherty. And Ed Connery is with us as well, and Ed will be answering any of the questions that come in. And speaking of that, we have an FAQ that we normally go over here. If you have a question, please use that question box. There's where you can find it. And we will try to get to all your questions as we go throughout the webinar or at the very end. If we ask about raising your hand, in case you couldn't find it a moment ago, here's where you can find that raise your hand icon. We will be recording this webinar, and we're going to have it available on our help site so that you can view that in the future, along with our other webinars that we've done in the past. Our next one is going to be in July on the 23rd, noon Central Time, and we are doing these in version 7.7 and higher. Our agenda for today, we're going to go over Virtual Kanban and what Virtual Kanban 2.0 is. We will go through the prerequisites, configuration things, and do a demo so you can see it in action. We're going to have a couple surveys. We'll give you the results of those surveys as well. So first off, what is Virtual Kanban? How does it work? What normally happens here is the ERP is going to send the on-hand inventory for some designated parts to Ultriva. And in this example, we have the ERP inventories for part 1. It's going to send 12,250 pieces. Okay, so what Ultriva is going to do is going to compare that 12,250 and with what Ultriva has on hand, and then release cards accordingly to the supplier. So in Ultriva, let's say we have open box selected. We have 1,000 pieces on a card, and we have 15 cards. So Ultriva thinks there are 15,000 pieces, but the ERP says 12,250. So in this scenario, what would happen is Ultriva is going to release 3 cards to the supplier, and then 12 cards would be remaining. So that's, in a nutshell, how Virtual Kanban works. Virtual Kanban 2.0 was released with version 7.7 P7. And with that, there's some additional logic that got implemented so that it will kind of keep the inventory in sync with your ERP, so you can kind of match those up. So if your reorder point is set to open box or a particular percentage, then what happens is a ghost card gets created for that remaining quantity so that you can kind of see that and match that up. And that ghost card is basically just a 0 cycle card, and it will get destroyed when those remaining units get consumed. So if we take our previous example from the last slide, for part 1, the ERP was sending 12,250. And so in Ultriva, it's going to release the 3 cards like it did earlier. However, there are going to be 13 cards remaining. And so 12 cards, we're going to have the 1,000 each. And then that ghost card is going to have 250. And once that inventory level drops, that ghost card will get destroyed, and nothing additional is released to the supplier. And
Hi everyone. I just want to speak a little bit about kind of the whys and the whens. So the why do it? What are the benefits? Really, there are 2 major benefits that come out of using Virtual Kanban. One is the absolute reduction of non-value add work, and what I mean by that is the necessity to do any scanning for consumption releases is completely gone, since everything is handled in an automated or at least semi-automated fashion. There's no scanning required anymore, and because of that, what you're going to do is get an improvement on your replenishment accuracy. And the reason for that being that you're not going to have misscans, you're not going to have lost cards. There's no need for those actions to take place because we're taking data in on the back end via integration or file upload, which I'll speak to in a minute. And as Laura explained, having those values compared and based on where the actual inventory is compared to the Ultriva Kanban inventory, the cards are just going to get released automatically to the supplier. Okay, and in terms of when would you do it, meaning under what circumstances is it a good idea? Number one is having a high level of confidence in a couple of things. Number one is your actual inventory accuracy in your ERP system. And what I mean by that is that once you pick the category that represents your on-hand inventory, which more often than not is going to be your nettable on-hand in your warehouse. So anything that's nettable and not anything that's in quarantine or MRB or that's been moved to the line or hasn't been brought into the warehouse yet from a staging area or something like that. So all of those transactions need to be done reliably, so that you know your on-hand inventory is spot on, and we're going to be replenishing that inventory in an accurate fashion. And then the second thing is a high level of confidence in your bombs, that they're maintained and accurate, so that the correct inventories are being sent across for Ultriva to make those releases. And then the other thing is the availability of your actual inventory data. So clearly the data is in your system, but it's a matter of how do you get it out and how do you get it into Ultriva. There are two ways to do that. One is via an integration interface. So in other words, we at Ultriva would work with your IT department and come up with a means for them to push a file on a periodic basis. It could be daily, could be hourly, it could be every 15 minutes, depending on how often you want to release signals based on your consumption. The other way to do it, if you don't have the opportunity to integrate, don't have the IT resources, or for whatever reason, it is possible to do a manual file upload on a regular basis. Obviously, that's going to require a level of discipline and guaranteed regularity, but it absolutely can be done, and I'll employ that method today during the demo later to show you how that's done. We won't actually do it via integration today. Okay.
All right, and with that, we are ready for poll question number 1. We'll go ahead and launch that for you. So what level of confidence do you have in your ERP inventory? Butch was just explaining that you would need to have a high level of confidence in that. So I see votes coming in. We'll give folks a few more seconds to submit those votes. All right, looks like our voting has leveled off. We will go ahead and close that, and we will go ahead and share the results of that. All right, Butch, would you like to make a few comments?
Sure. I mean, I'm glad to see that some people have extreme confidence, and absolutely, if you're not using virtual Kanban in that situation, I think it could be of great benefit. In terms of somewhat confident, that seems to be the majority, and I'd be very interested in hearing more about, where the trepidation is or the lack of confidence, and feel free to email me, or we can set up a conversation after the webinar at some point and talk through it and see how we can help you out.
All right, so we'll go ahead and hide that, and we will jump back to our slides here. And with this, we have some configuration and some prerequisites, and obviously one big one is having that inventory integration point that Butch was just talking about, or having the data available for a file upload, which would have to be done very consistently if you chose the file upload portion. And there are some settings at the item level that would need to be handled. And the very first one would be changing the category to virtual. For the categories, you have 3 options: forecast, virtual, or Kanban. And so we would choose virtual. Keep in mind, though, if you're using item sync, that this could be coming over via the item sync. And if you change it in Ultriva, there's a good possibility that it would be overwritten. So if you do choose to go this route, make sure the right system gets updated. The next piece that would be updated for the items would be the reorder point. And once you choose virtual, there are a few extra options. You know, most of you are probably used to the open box or empty box option, but with virtual, there are some others based on the percentage of the box that gets consumed. There is an additional optional feature with Virtual Kanban. Maybe you have 2 or 3 high dollar items that you may not want to automatically get released to the supplier. You may want to have a buyer or someone approve those before they get released. And there is an option for that. And once this is done, the cards would just be placed in a pending state, waiting for that buyer approval. And so to use this option, you would go to the plant configuration, and on the release tab, there is an approvals for virtual Kanban release. And so once that is turned on, then there's another piece to that. You would have to select the items that you want to have the buyer approve. So you would, there's a new checkbox at the bottom for the item. You would enable virtual Kanban release approval. You would just put your check mark there and save that. And then once cards would get released, they wouldn't necessarily get released. They would be in that pending state, and the buyer would need to go to buyer actions, virtual Kanban approve, and then they could choose which ones they want to release to the supplier and when they're releasing that. And as far as the configuration for virtual Kanban 2.0, the one that creates that ghost card so that you can see that the inventory levels match between the two systems, that is controlled not in the website, not through the user interface. In order to use that, you would need to contact your Ultriva support representative, and we would help you get that set up. All right, and with this, I think we are ready to start our demo.
I will take control, and let me just share my desktop with everyone here. All right, if everyone can now see my desktop, you should be looking at a familiar screen, the buyer status report. Maybe a quick raise of hands just to make sure that this has gone smoothly.
All right, I see some hands going up.
Looking good. All right, so as I said, we're going to start here on a screen that I imagine most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with, the buyer status report from the plant perspective. And what I've done is I've set up a reasonably uncomplex demo for the purposes of not overwhelming anyone. We have a single supplier that we're working with in this. There are 4 virtual Kanban parts being managed. I am going to manage it using the file upload feature as opposed to the integration feature, but honestly, they are exactly the same. It's just a matter of how the file's getting to Ultriva, whether it's manually or automatically and on a scheduled basis. So with these 4 parts, all of them are virtual Kanban. As I said, I've set them up with varying configuration parameters. So I know that this part happens to be release a card when a box is 25% consumed. Others are on open box, and I think I've got one set up for empty box. And just to demonstrate that feature that Lori was talking about earlier, that is part of the 2.0 version of virtual Kanban, this first part, for instance, really has a permanent loop size of 3 cards. The reason we see 4 cards is because earlier today, I reduced the inventory by a certain number that took it below that 25% consumed, and it did release this card to be replenished, but then it created this card, which we'll call a ghost card. So let me just adjust my screen a bit here. So this is the card that was released, and then this is the ghost card that got created. It is a 0-cycle card. It represents the remaining on-hand inventory, so that as inventory is continually consumed while that card is out there being replenished, this inventory figure, currently 200 pieces on the card, will go down until it hits 0, and then this card will automatically destroy. It will disappear. It won't be released for replenishment. Okay, and I have the same for a lot of these other parts where there are cards that have been released and there's 1 ghost card remaining. There should never be more than 1 ghost card. Okay, So with that in mind, oh, and let me just also say, under what circumstances would you not go ahead and use the version 2.0? And really the only time that would be, a logical decision would be if all of your consumptions are on open box. If everything is, if all the cards are always released when the first piece is picked out of that box, then the 2.0 doesn't really need to be put into place. There's nothing to keep track of. Okay, so sorry, I have a file here. So this is the file that I'm going to submit. This is the file that would go by upload or by integration. It's a real simple file, 4 columns only. You've got this EBJ biz code, which is really just the plant code as it's represented in ERP and Ultriva. The EBJ item is the item number itself, so that's this field here. Then you've got the inventory quantity. We've got 2,500, 2,300, and you can see these correlate to, I've taken the inventory down on this one and on this one, on all of them. You should see some releases and some just inventory quantity updates. And then the final column is the inventory date. So on what date was the inventory that's being submitted taken? And I would say 10 out of 10 times that's going to be today's date, the date the actual query takes place. So I've already saved this, and I also have another screen up to save time, kind of like on the cooking shows when they have something already done in the oven. Where I am now is I'm on the admin screen under the data load, tools and data load section. You can see there are many, many opportunities to do manual data uploads. We're going to do an inventory data upload. And I'm just going to browse to that file that I'm working with, which is this inventory file with a date timestamp that looks exactly as it would if it were an integration file. And when I upload that, it's going to show me the data that I'm uploading, including the column headers. And the one thing we do need to change here when we're doing it manually, just because I've put the date in as a month, day, year, so we'll need to change this from the default to the month, day, year with slashes. Everything else is correct. Tab for the delimiter, and the decimal is a separator if we have any point values. You'll click next, and there's a lot of codes and dates and things on this screen. Really what you're looking for is right here. The inventory data has been imported successfully, so we know that there were no errors. All the data is good. And then we click finish, and the data is uploading to the system now, updating all of the inventory as required, and then taking any actions that are needed. And we can quickly check how that went by going to our batch job status and look at the inventory job for today's date. And we're going to look at the top row, because I've done this a number of times today, and see what happened. So for each of these, we can drill in and see that for one card, we have a current card quantity is 1,500. That's the standard order quantity. We're calling an issue parts to issue 500 off of that. And then because of that, the card is released and a child card is created for the remaining units. Okay, so it's created a ghost card. And then on the previous ghost card, we had 200 pieces, and we call issue parts to issue the quantity of 200. Now that card should be gone. Okay, if we go back to the summary, sorry about that, we would be able to drill down on every part and see exactly what happened. Okay, basically the same thing. And now if we switch back to the buyer status report, I'm just going to do a quick screen refresh. And you see we've got 3, 13, 10, and 1 cards there. And now that we've uploaded the inventory file, we see that all of those numbers have changed. This is down to 2, to 12, to 7. And this didn't change, but it did update the inventory. It was, I believe, 600 and something before. So again, if I highlight the row, then we're going to see 1 permanent card here that was last received by me for 1,500 pieces. And then we're going to see the ghost card, which was created by app user, which is the system. And there are 1,000 pieces left on it. And again, that will continue to decrement until it hits 0, and then it'll be destroyed while these cards are being replenished. All right, that's basically it for my demo. So Ed, do we have anyone who's asking questions that need to be answered?
Yeah, we had one question that they wanted to know if the ghost card would appear differently, such as in material status. Does it show as a single cycle card, or does it show that there's one card that will be destroyed after consumption?
I don't believe it does show differently. I think it looks like any other card. We can go and take a look at material status. And I know that was for supplier, BC Mexico, and we want to look at only virtual cards. And for instance, we know this one has a ghost card, so if we go to view the details, we're going to see really exactly what we saw on the buyer status screen. So it does not actually show up any differently.
But we can see that we have one non-replenishment card.
Correct.
Perfect.
Yes, exactly. Okay, any other questions? All right, Lori, I'll hand it back to you.
All right, perfect. I'll go ahead and share my screen again. And just a moment here, and let's see. Right. All right, we have done our demo now, so let's see what we've got. We are ready for poll question number 2 here. So we will go ahead and launch that. All right, so now that you've seen this webinar, do you think virtual Kanban might be beneficial at your facility? All right, I see votes coming in. All right, we'll give this a few more seconds. I see people are still voting. All right, looks like voting has leveled off here. So we will go ahead and close this, and now we will go ahead and share. And it looks like quite a few folks are definitely interested, and a few folks are interested, maybe not the deciding person, and a few folks need more information. So for some of you, if we are able to, we will go ahead and reach out to you and be in touch to see what kind of additional questions that you do have. Let me go ahead and we'll hide the poll here. And I do have my contact information on the screen. If you would like to reach out to me, feel free. And I believe, Ed, how are we doing on questions? Do we have any more that came in?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, perfect. So we want to thank you all for spending part of your day with us. Feel free to reach out if you need anything or have any additional questions about this. And other than that, everybody have a very good rest of the day.